in the grand tapestry of Indian history. Woven with tales of mighty emperors and sprawling empires, there's a name often overshadowed, a king who stands between two titans. We all know Chandragupta Maurya, the founder of the Mauryan Empire, and his grandson, the legendary Ashoka the Great. But what about the man who connected them, the ruler who inherited an empire and passed on an even greater one? Today, we pull back the curtain on the life of Bindusara, the second Mauryan emperor, a figure far more fascinating than history often gives him credit for. His story begins around 320 BCE, born to the great Chandragupta Maurya and his queen Dada, but his very birth is shrouded in a dramatic, almost mythical tale. Legend says that Chandragupta's advisor, the brilliant was secretly administering small doses of poison in the emperor's food to build his immunity against assassination attempts. One day a heavily pregnant queen Dada, unaware of this, shared a meal with her husband. The poison took immediate effect. Realizing the queen was beyond saving, Chanakya acted swiftly to save the heir. He performed a rudimentary cesarean section, but a single drop, a bindu in Sanskrit, of the poison had already touched the unborn child's forehead. The baby survived, but was left with a permanent mark, and so he was named Bindusara, the one with a drop on his forehead. This traumatic entry into the world was just the beginning of a reign that would consolidate one of ancient India's greatest empires. So, what did this king, born from a near tragedy, actually achieve? Let's dive in. When Chandragupta Maurya abdicated his throne around 298 BCE to become a giant monk, the massive responsibility of the empire fell upon the shoulders of the 22-year-old. He inherited a kingdom that stretched from the Himalayas in the north to the Deccan Plateau in the south, and from modern-day Afghanistan in the west to Bengal in the east. It was a vast and complex territory, and holding it together was no small feat. Unlike his father, who was a conqueror, or his son, who became a messenger of peace, Bindusara's reign is primarily remembered for consolidation. He wasn't about massive expansion. He was about strengthening the foundations his father had laid. He earned the title Amitraghata, which translates to slayer of enemies. This doesn't necessarily mean he was constantly at war. More accurately, it suggests he was incredibly effective at suppressing internal rebellions and keeping his rivals in check, ensuring the empire's stability. One of his most significant challenges came from the city of Taxila, a major administrative and commercial hub. The citizens there revolted twice during his reign, not against the emperor himself, but against the mismanagement of his local governors. For the first rebellion, Bindusara sent his son, Ashoka, to quell the unrest. Ashoka was welcomed by the people, who clarified their grievances were with the corrupt officials, not the royal family. This event highlights two things: Bindusara's trust in his son's abilities and the underlying loyalty he commanded from his subjects. The second rebellion was handled by his other son, Susima, though with less success. Bindusara's foreign policy was just as impressive. He maintained the friendly relations with the Hellenistic world that his father had established. Ancient Greek sources mention ambassadors visiting his court. Megasthenes, who served at Chandragupta's court, was succeeded by a man named Demetrius, who came as an envoy from the Seleucid king, Antiochus I. There are even amusing anecdotes recorded, like Bindusara writing to Antiochus, requesting him to send sweet wine, dried figs, and a sophist, a Greek philosopher. Antiochus happily sent the wine and figs, but politely explained that it was against Greek law to sell a philosopher. This little exchange gives us a wonderful glimpse into the personality of Bindusara, man of curiosity and taste, engaged in cultural exchange with the superpowers of his time. He also had good relations with Ptolemy II of Philadelphus, the ruler of Egypt, who sent his own ambassador named Dionysius to the Mauryan court. Internally, Bindusara continued to patronize the Ajivika sect, a philosophical and ascetic movement that was popular at the time. This was different from his father, who favored Jainism, and his son Ashoka, who would famously embrace Buddhism. This shows a climate of religious tolerance within the Mauryan court, where different faiths could coexist and even receive royal patronage. Bindusara's court was also a hub of intellect, with wise advisors guiding the administration, a tradition he inherited from his father's partnership with Chanakya. While some sources say Chanakya continued to serve others suggest new ministers like Kalitaka and Rudhupta rose to prominence. So, how did this remarkable reign end? Bindusara ruled for approximately 25 to 27 years, a period of relative peace and prosperity for the empire. He passed away around 273 BCE. His death, however, was not the end of the drama. It triggered a fierce war of succession among his sons. Though Susima was the eldest and the intended heir, it was the more capable and ambitious Ashoka who ultimately emerged victorious after a struggle that, according to some legends, lasted for 4 years. Ashoka inherited an empire that was stable, wealthy, and well administered, a perfect launchpad for his own legendary reign. And that is the true legacy of Bindusara. He was the vital link in the Mauryan dynasty. He didn't found the empire, nor did he transform it with a new ideology. What he did was perhaps just as important. He held it together. He was the steady hand on the tiller, navigating the empire through the crucial period between its explosive creation and its golden age. His reign ensured that the administrative machinery built by Chandragupta and Chanukya continued to function smoothly. He maintained internal order, managed foreign relations with skill, and passed down a powerful, unified subcontinent to his successor. Without Bindusara's quiet consolidation, Ashoka's famous transformation and the spread of his Dhamma might never have been possible. So, the next time you hear the story of the Mauryas, remember the king in the middle. Remember Bindusara, the slayer of enemies, the man with the faded mark, the emperor who wasn't just a placeholder, but a powerful and crucial pillar upon which one of the world's greatest empires was built. His story is a powerful reminder that history is not just made by the loudest voices, but also by the steady hands that guide the ship of state through calm and stormy seas alike. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the life of a forgotten emperor, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more hidden stories from history. Let us know in the comments which historical figure you'd like us to cover next. Until then, stay curious.